Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from thousands of successful individuals from around the world. I am your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I'm delighted and privileged to welcome a very, very accomplished and senior professional from Florida, USA, Mr. John Spence. John, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here.
Thank you. John is an author, a business consultant, workshop facilitator, keynote speaker, and an executive coach. At the age of 26, he became the CEO of the Rockefeller Foundation. He has been named amongst the 50 top leaders in America to watch, along with Sergey Brin, Larry Page, and Jeff Bezos. And John has been recognized, felicitated, and awarded globally. My goodness, what an amazing journey you've had, John.
Thank you. That's kind of you. It's been fun and still is.
Absolutely. So let me then start by asking you, tell me about your amazing journey and what have been some of your key learnings?
Well, my journey started off in a troubled way. I failed out of college on the first try out of university. It was worse that I failed out of the University of Miami in Miami, Florida, where my father was one of the top alumni ever to graduate from the university. He was on the board of directors when I got kicked out, and part of the law school is named after my father.
Wow.
So a little challenging there. But I went and restarted college at what we would call here a community college, sort of a tier 2 university, and then eventually got into the University of Florida in Gainesville, Florida, where I live now, and graduated in the top 3 in the United States in my major, and was hired immediately out of college by the Rockefellers to run one of their foundations. Or I started working there and took over running it a few years later.
Amazing.
And you asked, my biggest learning came from one of my professors who I had told that I really wanted to do well in college. And he said, there's only 3 things it takes to be successful at university. And I believe they still apply to you and I. He said, number 1, read the books. At least in college, most of the answers are in the books.
Yeah.
Today, I know that all of the answers aren't in the books, but the information that will help you find the answers is still in the books.
Correct.
Number 2, he said, ask for help. Ask everybody in Cypher, get advice, get input, get suggestions, talk to the professors. And then the third thing he said was start study groups. Surround yourself with bright, sharp, smart, talented people that will help you. And I had 6 people in my study group, and we graduated numbers 1 through 6 from the university. So the most important thing I've ever learned in my life came from that. You become what you focus on and like the people you surround yourself with.
Oh, amazing. What an amazing journey. When I was reading about you, John, you make a statement that you have made a career making the very complex awesomely simple. Help me understand this with an example.
Well, here's a quick example. I read 100 to 120 business books a year, and I have every year since 1989.
Wow.
And I've figured out that one of my skills is pattern recognition. So as an example, I've probably read a couple of 100 books on leadership. And people go, don't they get redundant? And I go, yeah, they do. And it's excellent because after I read that, I see the pattern. And I figure if 50 of the top authors in the world and my personal experience running companies or working companies, I see the same things over and over again, then those are probably a good foundation for what it takes to be a great leader. So I've done the same thing in strategy, culture, other things. And I combine that with what I'm seeing in the real world and look for the pattern. And that's how I take pretty complex things and try to make them simple.
Amazing. You're also a coach. So I'm going to now move to a few questions on coaching.
Excellent.
You are much younger than me, but I remember when I started working, coaching or mentoring was done either by a family elder or by someone senior in the company who took a liking for you. I want to understand from you, how has coaching changed or evolved that today it's almost become a profession which people are willing to pay for?
Yes. I think what's happened is there used to be sort of a stigma that if you had a coach, you needed help, that you weren't doing well.
Right.
Early in my career, for some Fortune 100 companies, I served as an executive coach, and almost every time I was assigned to someone who was failing, and it was my job to help fix them, which, by the way, I learned that doesn't work very well.
Correct.
Fast forward to today, people now see it as a badge of pride, at least in the United States, of I'm a top executive and I have a top executive coach helping me as a sounding board, giving me ideas, introducing me to other people. So the perception of what a coach does has changed pretty dramatically. And now most of the executives I work with, it's part of their salary package that they automatically get an executive coach.
Wow. Amazing. I remember in the old days, if you got a coach, it was either what you said you need help or that you were the chosen few.
Yeah.
And you were on the fast track. But now I think it's much more prevalent in most organizations. But moving on, John, how has your background supported your coaching philosophy, your style, and your values?
Very, very well. Good question. I'm not a typical executive coach. I call myself a business acumen coach.
Right.
And the role that I play is, from all my experience and all the studying I do, an executive will come to me and say, I want to learn more, let's say, about strategy. So I will assign reading, homework, videos. I'll go over it with them. I'll send them, like, I've got about a 25-page memo I put together of everything, almost everything I know about strategy. So my background of all the study and all the experience I've had goes into me being sort of an instructor and helping people get really sharp in one area. And then after maybe we finish strategy, we move to high performance teams or things like that. I do, of course, help them with their businesses, but my major focus is let me help you, not make you, let me help you get really, really sharp in an area.
Right. Very interesting. My next question is that, over the years, you have worked with different individuals. You worked for the Rockefeller Foundation. How have the people you have worked with, and I'm sure they have been mentors and coaches for you as well, how have they shaped you in life, and how are they influencing you as a coach today?
Well, I'll go back to the Rockefellers because I worked for Winthrop P. Rockefeller III, and he had a right-hand man named Charlie Owen. And when I took over the foundation, as you mentioned, I was 26. And I needed a lot of help. So Charlie had an interesting way of helping me, mentoring me. Every Monday, he would come to my office and put a book on my desk, business book. And he would say, I'll see you Friday for lunch and a book report.
Okay.
So on Friday, we would go to lunch and he would grill me about the book. What did you learn? What about this? But then he asked an amazing question, which is a big life-changing question for me. All right, John, what are the 3 things you're going to apply from the book?
Amazing.
And then he would write those down and say, you'll now be held accountable for those in your job. So he got me into that, really voracious reading and studying, learning, but he was really focused on ideas are nice, but action is better. The other thing he would do is he would call me and say, John, we're going to go negotiate a $300 million deal. I want you to fly, sit in the back of the room, do not say anything, but take notes. Okay. And I would furiously write notes. Then afterwards, he would say, all right, what did you see? What did you learn? What did you think they did well? What could we have done? So from a mentoring standpoint, I got an education much more than I probably would have gotten with an MBA. And then Mr. Rockefeller it was interesting, would switch CEOs from different companies. So he would say, all right, John, I want you to go run this company for a month or work at this company for a month. And then over here. So I got exposed to a lot of different industries. Now I'll go back. I told you about the professor earlier that told me how to do well in college. 38 years later, we still go to breakfast every 2 weeks.
Wow.
He's still my mentor. He still helps me. He challenges me. And he's been a sounding board now for almost 40 years. One of my closest friends in the world that I can share anything with and know that he's always going to give me his best advice, honest advice, someone I trust implicitly.
Amazing. Amazing. What an amazing relationship to have.
Yes.
There are not too many people who can say that 4 decades later, someone is still their friend. Fantastic. My next question to you, John, is that what are some of the unique perspectives, other than, of course, your learnings, that you bring to a coaching relationship?
One thing I think I bring is my wife calls me the velvet hammer. I'm very good at delivering tough feedback in a way that people are happy to get it.
Okay.
The other thing I do for my coaching clients that I don't know a lot of executive coaches do is I will connect them with people around the world who I think will help them. Someone's running a $200 million company and wants to get to 500 million. I'll connect them with a CEO that's done that already. So I'm constantly making connections between executives, and most of my coaching clients, we have an agreement. If I need to connect you to someone and give them an hour of your time, I promise it's going to be worth it. And I've got executives around the world that say, anytime you want to introduce me to somebody, put us together and help it. So that's a unique way that I approach coaching that I don't know.
What a powerful tool. Yeah. Fantastic. And I'm sure a lot of your coaches must be taking you up on this, isn't it?
Oh, they do. Trust me.
Wonderful. My next question to you is, you live in a very, very culturally diverse country.
Yes.
And culture, in my view, plays a big role in the relationship between a coach and a coachee. I'd love to get your perspective on how does culture impact coaching?
It's fascinating. I think it's wonderful because we all bring our own unique backgrounds, what we've learned from our family, from our society. And the thing that's most interesting to me is I've been exposed to a lot of different cultures. Before the pandemic, I was traveling about 220 days a year worldwide. So I'm not quite as ethnocentric as most Americans are because I've been exposed to a lot. So I can bring in, when I was in Japan doing this is the way they approach this. Or, in New Zealand, I have partners in New Zealand. This is the way their economy is handling it. I think that's another thing that I can bring to it. But now the reverse is I also learn a ton from my coachees. I want to know about their culture, their background, how they see things. And also that last one of introducing them to other people around the world helps expand their knowledge of other cultures and the way other cultures do business.
Wonderful. One more question on coaching before I move to the next segment. This is the age of the millennials and the Gen Zs. I'm from the baby boomer generation.
As am I.
Okay. And, the millennials and Gen Z leaders are now getting into positions of influence in most organizations. I'd love to get your perspective on what are the areas these young leaders need to be coached in.
The areas they need to be coached in, I think it's interesting. Growing up with a lot of technology, and I think the soft skills are an area where maybe they're not as strong. And I would put it in around EQ, around the ability to connect with people at a genuine level, have empathy, understand the positions and the opinions of other people. And then you're going to get this, it's a little bit, this is basically all generations, is conflict resolution. And I don't mean yelling and screaming, fine, just the ability to handle difficult conversations, to challenge other people. It rolls around a lot, psychological safety. And when you do a lot of stuff over text and email, that EQ is not a skill that you develop very well. And in my work, and I'm sure you've seen this too, EQ is actually more important than IQ. If you're really smart, but you can't get along well with other people, you cannot be an effective leader. Absolutely. So that's a generation, I think, that because they're so connected to technology, some of those other relationship skills are very, very helpful.
Wonderful. Great response. Thank you. So let me now move to leadership. And you've done a lot of work on leadership as well. What are some of the key leadership issues we face in the corporate world today?
So especially with the economic troubles that I've seen, and when the global financial crisis, or for us, the Great Recession happened, there were three things that I saw, and I'm seeing these happen again now. The first one is a lack of a vivid, compelling, and well-communicated vision and strategy. I think people struggle, and maybe the senior executive team has a clear idea of where they want to go, or pretty clear, but communicating that down through the organization, gaining alignment and commitment, Big problem. And I would call it around visionary leadership and being a great strategic thinker. Number two, and we just touched on it briefly, is courageous communication.
Correct.
That when there are challenges and difficulties, which we've got aplenty right now, that teams can sit down and leaders can have a difficult conversation around layoffs, divestitures, trouble, potentially losing customers or whatever it might be. I saw in the Great Recession that people were afraid to have those conversations. And by the time that the leader finally got everyone there with psychological safety, it was too late to make a change. And then the last one, which is a huge area that all leaders need, is disciplined execution.
Correct.
I've been teaching a class at the Wharton School of Business, a senior executive level class, now for about 23 years on strategy and strategic thinking. And I ask my class, I get about 120 executives every year, what percentage of companies that have a good strategy, have a good plan, have a good product, have a good people, have all that in place, what percentage of them effectively executes their strategy? And for more than 20 years, the answer has been about 5 to 10%. So if you can just get to 50%, 30% execution, you're crushing your competition.
Fascinating. My next question to you, John, is that, again, this is the world of startups. Every country has huge numbers of startups. Startup founders have got a lot of knowledge. They've got a lot of understanding of technology, et cetera, et cetera. What, in your opinion, are some of the leadership challenges startup founders face?
The biggest one I've seen is having the courage, the vulnerability, the humility to surround themselves with a really good team and listen to them. A lot of founders do have a strong vision. And we can look at Jim Collins, Good to Great, with his 3 circles. What of the hedgehog concept? What are you world class at that you're passionate, that has a strong economic driver? I meet a lot of startup founders that are really good at something and deeply passionate about it. Unfortunately, no one will pay for that, and that's called a hobby. Correct. So I think they need to make sure they have all 3 circles and then understand that in my areas of weakness, I need to bring in somebody really talented. You and I know a lot of people that invest in companies. Truthfully, they invest in the senior team, knowing that this is a good product, a good market, they can fix it. And if not, they can pivot, but we've got the right people.
Well said. One more question on leadership, and then we'll move to your books. This is about the Great Resignation. It seems to be impacting corporate America and virtually every company in the world. What has been the impact of the Great Resignation on leadership?
So there's a couple things that I think led to this. And one of them is a challenge that myself and my colleagues have been struggling with mightily, is the idea of creating culture at a distance. Okay. That when we lose that connection to the organization, to the people there, to the purpose at some level, which is absolutely critical, when a leader can't continue to hold that culture together, people no longer have as much motivation to stay in the organization because they feel alone. They're working from their house. They're, work from home. So that's been a big thing. The other thing, and I just mentioned a little bit, is really connecting people directly with a noble purpose of the organization. What do we do? Why is it important? How do we touch people's lives? And then communicating that in a way that even if people are work from home, they still see the impact of their work every day. And the last thing I'll say is I think a lot of people during the pandemic had ample time to sit around and think through their life. And many people said, I don't really enjoy my job as much as I thought I did. And I'm sitting here alone doing the work and I'm not enjoying the work. I think I need to make a change, which is a massive war for talent. Every client I have is struggling to bring in good people. But I also think the pandemic changed in one way, which is now the world is your talent pool. Correct. A lot of companies realized you don't have to live in the town where our headquarters are. Yeah. We can hire somebody from anywhere. Correct. As long as they're highly talented. And that's been a big mind shift for a lot of leaders.
Terrific. Let me now move to your books. Tell me about the books that you've written.
I've written a couple, about 5. I'm working on a new one right now. The 2 that I would focus on, it's awkward for me to talk about my own books. I don't do a lot of self-promotion. The one that most people know me by is called Awesomely Simple, which is the foundation of making complex things simple. And that one, again, is the pattern I saw of great companies, of key things that they focus on that allow them to build and sustain a successful company. And what I like the most about that book is it has lots of checklists, to-do lists, questions, audits. So just like Charlie made me take the ideas and apply them, in my book, I tried to make sure that you take the ideas that you read in the chapter and I help you as much as I possibly can to actually implement that and apply that in your business. The other book I wrote that I like a lot too, or I think is pretty good, is one called Excellence by Design, and it's focused on leadership. And there's an interesting backstory to that book, which is I wrote that many years ago. And because I read so much, I have a tremendous amount of respect for authors. And I really thought that I didn't know enough to write a book because I don't know that much, you know, I'm just working. And one of my clients called and said, I'd like to buy 500 copies of your book on leadership.
Wow.
And I said, I don't have one. He goes, then write it and I'll buy the first 500 copies. So I wrote it and self-published it. And it's a book that not many people know about. I don't promote it, but it's very, very popular. And we've ended up selling tens of thousands of them. And it's a short book and it's easy. And again, it's a pattern of key things that I've seen excellent leaders do that allows them to be unique and effective in their organization.
Fabulous, fabulous. So I am going to tell my viewers and listeners to check out your books, Awesomely Simple and Excellence by Design. And John, my last question to you, and this is for the many, many people who will listen to our conversation. Based on your incredible journey, what would you say are 3 lessons you would want our viewers and listeners to take away from your journey and from our conversation?
That mentors are essential. I've got and I know you know this concept, mastermind groups from Napoleon Hill. When my professor back in college said start study groups, that was basically a small mastermind group. 6 of us that helped each other, that, you know, you read chapters 1 through 6, you read 7 through 10, we teach each other. College became a lot easier for me when I had 5 people helping me. When I became a young CEO, I started a mastermind group of CEOs under the age of 30. When I turned 31, it was under 40. After that, I stopped putting an age on it. But fast forward to today, I have a mastermind group of about 18 CEOs. And we meet about once every 45 days. And we sign books and we bring in guest speakers and we do things like, so having that group of mentors, trusted advisors, has changed my life. So that's one thing I would say.
Fantastic.
The other one, which is I'm a huge fan for reading, but to be a lifelong learner, to be insatiably curious. The average business person, and this will scare you, reads about a half a business book a year. If you were to read one or the equivalent thereof, podcasts like yours, audiobooks, blogs, whatever it might be, but the equivalent of one book every other month, 6 a year, you're in the top % of whatever country you live in.
Wow.
If you were to read 12 books a year, you're in the top 1% on the face of the earth, which given your background behind you is especially poignant. So dedicate yourself to lifelong learning. And then the last one is, and I didn't realize this until later in my career, how important EQ is. I'm a person that's, believe it or not, very introverted. Even though I give speeches to groups as large as 20,000, I prefer to be alone. And I've had to learn to connect well with other people, to be more empathetic, to focus more on other people and listen to them. And it has changed the way I've led organizations and in my own life, my relationships with other people, that soft skills are not soft. They're really, really, really important.
Very well said. Well said. And John, on that note, and your 3 amazing lessons, which are mentors are essential, be a lifelong learner, and the importance of EQ. Also, your earlier advice of read books, ask for help, and start study groups, which you just also, in another way, said, mentor groups. Thank you so much for speaking to me. Thank you for talking to me about your incredible journey, your thoughts on coaching, your thoughts on leadership, and finally, thank you for talking to me about your books. Thank you again.
Absolutely my honor. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.